Troodontids. Welcome, guys, once again to the channel, Ranking with Dinosaurs, where we ranked, you guessed it, dinosaurs. And today we're going to be covering quite a controversial group who has gone through a lot of revisions. A lot of, genuses have been, axed, and some of them have been erected from, nowhere. And, again, I say controversial because the genus, the most popular animal from this list that we will not be talking about, was actually just named after a single tooth, which is not good. And tooth right now, like tooth genuses are non-diagnostic, which means they cannot be, differentiated from other dinosaurs. So you cannot just name a dinosaur after a tooth anymore, but you could do it in the past. So I hope I can, explain a little bit of the how each of these Troodontids differ from each other, and gonna be ranking them as we do with every video on this channel. I want to say apologize if you can hear some actual loudness in the background, because outside my house, oh my god, I've been trying to record for like the last 2 hours, and they do not shut up. Oh my god. So I apologize if you can hear some. I'll try to, cut it out as much as I can, as I humanly can. So I apologize for that in advance. So without further ado, this intro's too long. I'm going to be starting with STENONYCHOSAURUS. So we're going to be starting with this Troodontid that lived during the late Cretaceous, specifically in the Dinosaur Park Formation, which we're talking about in our North American formations video, and possibly the Two Medicine Formation as well. So SINORNITHOIDES was a genus originally, but it did go to the genus Troodon, the infamous Troodon, back in 1987, and then went back to SINORNITHOIDES in 2017. This was a small theropod, small-ish, yeah. I would say the estimates are 8 feet or 2.5 meters in length, and, respectable 77 pounds or 35 kilograms. This is comparable in size, for example, if you're gonna, have a mental image, comparable to Deinonychus, which is, a dromaeosaur. And they had this sickle claws as well, kind of like their, cousins, the dromaeosaurs, but not as enlarged, I would say. They had very slender hind limbs, which, suggests that they were quick runners. And they had these very large and slightly forward-facing eyes. And this specific feature actually suggests or theorizes that they might have had a partial nocturnal lifestyle. Animals with big eyes, for example, owls do thrive during the night. So it's a fair assessment that Troodons could have had a much more nocturnal, active life. So this one as well from STENONYCHOSAURUS. Some scans of its brain case actually shows us that it had one of the largest brains relative to the body size, kind of comparable to today's modern birds, and it had a possible omnivorous diet. STENONYCHOSAURUS, I think, is a staple. It's a staple today of Troodontids. Now that Troodon has been extinct, and not only from the face of the earth, but from the face of paleontology. I'm just kidding. Those Troodon defenders, I feel you. Don't worry. And STENONYCHOSAURUS, I think I'm gonna go for now. I'm gonna go B tier. Mei Long. We're gonna be moving on, and we have Mei Long, a kind of like duck-sized dinosaur. Actually, this guy's from the Yixian Formation in China, and it's been called Mei Long, which means the gracile sleeping dragon. And it was given this name due to the nature of the fossil that was discovered, which was in a sleeping position. I do have a Mei Long figure right here. I usually don't have a lot of small dinosaur figures because they kind of clash with the scale of the collection that I have. But I can pass this Mei Long. It's absolutely adorable, and I love that every single paleard of Mei Long, it's sleeping, which is the nature of the fossil, which was again sleeping position. This was because the actual animal, while it was sleeping, it was buried instantly in volcanic ash. Yes, very sad. And I mean, what can we say about Mei Long? It was very similar to birds. Well, not only Mei Long, but Troodontids and other dinosaurs in general. Because, for example, this guy, the way it sleeps, as you can see, it kind of reminds you of a bird. And what this particular discovery did is that it straightened like the link between birds and dinosaurs. Not that we know that birds are dinosaurs, but back in the day, a lot of people having their hesitation. But honestly, again, this does show that some dinosaurs or well birds today do get some actual behaviors from their ancestors, the dinosaurs. They have a lot more in common than you might think. Also, Mei Long has as a basal troodontid, it actually has much more bird-like hip structure, which is unlike the more advanced troodontids, which developed and they didn't need this much more. They didn't need to look that much like birds. They went into their own thing. So Mei Long actually it is adorable, and adorable starts with A, so it's gonna go in A tier. PECTNODON. Now we're gonna be moving on to a troodontid from the end of the Maastrichtian, actually. So it lived right at the end where all dinosaurs went extinct, or at least non-avian dinosaurs. And it contains a single valid species, and it is known only from teeth. Now this is hugely disappointing because I know the first time I heard about PECTNODON specifically was from Prehistoric Planet, where they depict PECTNODON in late Maastrichtian North America, and I honestly thought, because this show actually does a lot of research into their creatures, that PECTNODON would have had a lot more to work with. And the fact that it's only teeth, I am honestly baffled that they even decided to put PECTNODON in the show, which is, kind of insane. But, I put it in here because, it did show up in the show. So, it does have some relevance, but it was actually, I don't know. It is mainly known from the Lance Formation as well. But it may also be in Hell Creek, because most likely in Hell Creek we have found some troodontid fossils, which may belong to PECTNODON, may not. But it's probably a lot of those numerous species that the genus Troodon was assigned. These species were assigned to the genus Troodon, so PECTNODON might be one of them. But from its tooth morphology, I guess, well, not I guess, the paleontologists did their work, and they can infer a couple things. Is that they preyed primarily on soft prey items. So, like vertebrates, insects, all that sort of stuff, and small vertebrates, small lizards, small mammals, or maybe carrion as well, which is, much more decayed, and absolutely not suitable for high stress feeding. So that is one of the things actually that they showed in Prehistoric Planet, is that they were trying to break into a carcass of an Alamosaurus, and it actually couldn't, because their teeth weren't made for that. They had to wait for a huge ass T-Rex to bite into the actual carcass. So PECTNODON, I have to say, hugely disappointed. Is not it, man? I thought you were better, PECTNODON. What happened? I'm gonna put you in D tier. I have to. ZANABAZAR. Now, this is a large troodontid, or at least on the larger side of troodontids. And again, this is Lake Cretaceous, but this time in Mongolia. And it was originally known as SAURORNITHOIDES, another troodontid that we'll be talking about. But it was given its own genus, again, for morphological differences, back in 2005. And the whole type of ZANABAZAR actually includes a skull, some vertebrae, and the right hind limb, yes. Again, I'm saying on the larger side, but it's a bit smaller than STENONYCHOSAURUS, around the same size, at 7.5 feet or 2.3 meters in length, and weighing 55 pounds or 25 kilograms. what I will say is that this is the largest Asian troodontid that we have found since the preferred the preserved vertebrae actually showed a fully grown adult, and it coexisted with a lot of the different fauna, specifically from the Nemegt formation. So all your Tarbosaurus, Therizinosaurus, Deinocheirus, Nemegtosaurus, all those guys. Well, ZANABAZAR was part of this huge environment, which I always love when these specific formations get you can get the big picture, like not only the big dinosaurs, which it's the ones that we all look at, but the small little guys, the fish, the animals that a lot of people don't pay that much attention. I liked that when they are represented in these big formations. So ZANABAZAR, honestly, a little bit obscure, but I still like it. I think it's on the same level as STENONYCHOSAURUS, which means I am going to put it in B tier. SINORNITHOIDES. Now we're going back to a little bit earlier in time, to the early Cretaceous in China. And SINORNITHOIDES contains a single species which measures an astounding 3.3 feet, or just 1 meter long. Yes, and it was very small. However, it was a gracile and very bird-like manner at Torrent, as we discussed with May, which much more basal troodontids actually resemble birds much more. And back in 1994, when it was discovered, it was actually one of the most completely known troodontids as well. And while it did possess a elongated and pointed skull like other troodontids, it was still relatively short compared to the overall body. SINORNITHOIDES had their arms, which were, unlike much later troodontids, much more weakly developed, which means they didn't use them probably as much as much more derived members. And their sickle claws, something interesting is that they were much more larger in relative to its size to other troodontids. So what this paints a picture is that it was using less of its arms in predation, when it was trying to running around and catching prey, but it was more using the kind of like the the theory of the raptor restraint that dromaeosaurs use, this hunting method where they pounce on prey with their sickle claws, and they use it to pin the prey in place. So I guess they were using it more towards again, troodontids, smaller prey, lizard, little mammals. They probably latched onto it with their feet first, and then they went with their heads. Less of less arm action, I would say. So SINORNITHOIDES, really cute little animal, I have to say. I didn't expect it to like it as much, so I think I might put it above B tier. Yes, I think I'm gonna put it in A tier. This is a surprise for me, actually. SAURORNITHOIDES. Now, these were late Cretaceous little predators, which were around 5.6, 5.7 feet or 1.75 meters, which puts them on the, I guess not the really small, but on the smaller size for these troodontids. And they scoured the Gobi Desert in the this is the Jadocta formation. So yes, the Gobi Desert, looking for small prey, little mammals, little reptiles to eat. One of the cool things about SAURORNITHOIDES is that we have actually found juvenile specimens, and what this juvenile specimens shows us is that through osteological analysis, these specific juveniles, where for their age they were at when they died, they were pretty well developed, which means that this little SAURORNITHOIDES, or maybe all troodontids in general, juveniles or little babies, actually required little to no parental care, which again shows that they, at a very young age, these guys could fend for themselves at a much younger age than most other dinosaurs, which did present some require parental help. So SAURORNITHOIDES does have a pretty long and pretty low head and a depressed muzzle, coupled with very sharp teeth, and it had a relatively large brain. Again, like other Troodontids, they had these big eye sockets where, you know, had those big eyes, I was gonna say something stupid. Almost binocular vision, which, you know, gave it a very well depth, very good depth perception, which, you know, made it so it could, you know, not only have very good vision at day, but incredible vision at night. And another thing is that their sickle claws were on the you know, moderate size, not very big, but not very small, but they were very recurved. So, you know, that's something about SAURORNITHOIDES. So this guy, I think I'm gonna put it at the same level as STENONYCHOSAURUS and ZANABAZAR. I think they're all pretty interchangeable. I would say I'm a much more fan of SAURORNITHOIDES though. LATENIVENATRIX. So we're gonna be closing the tier list with the Hiding Huntress, which I have to say is a pretty sick name. LATENIVENATRIX is a large Troodontid, and it is known from non-tooth fossils. Yes, non-tooth fossils from that were previously assigned to the Nomendubium Troodon. Yes, Nomendubium. And it has an estimated body length of a whopping 11.5 feet. Or for those that you do not follow, you know, do feet, I would say 3.5 meters. So, you know, that's much bigger than a lot of the Troodontids that we've been talking about thus far. It is, without a doubt, as of now, the largest Troodontid that we have, that it is known to us. One of the cool things as well is that it has been found to be a derived Troodontid. Inside Troodontid, this is a Troodontinae, and it means that it was much more closely related to the Asian Troodontids, like LATENIVENATRIX and PHILOVENATRIX. I say that because LATENIVENATRIX, I didn't say it, it has been found in North America, and it is proposed that it is a junior synonym of STENONYCHOSAURUS, which, you know, we opened the video with. But, you know, that is still a little bit debated today. I like to think LATENIVENATRIX is its own thing. It is a huge Troodontid. Gotta love that. Some of the fossils that were assigned actually show some, you know, pathologies like a cyst. One of them had a cyst in the parietal bone, and an embryo actually had a congenital defect, which, you know, it had a twisted jaw, which is, you know, pretty insane and pretty interesting, honestly, that we can find this one-of-a-kind fossils a lot of the times. But yes, again, like other Troodontids, this guy was probably a semi-omnivorous animal, having, you know, meat as its protein as its main method of sustenance, I would say. And yeah, again, LATENIVENATRIX, largest Troodontid. I love it, honestly. It gotta be my favorite Troodontid, and that means that, yes, it's going to get the S tier. That is going to be the tier list, guys. Thank you so much for watching. This has been the Troodontid tier list. Let me know in the comments which is your favorite Troodontid, which ones did I absolutely missed, because I missed other Troodontids. I'm sorry for those PECTNODON fans. It's the same thing I say to the Troodon fans, bro. Find other stuff that is not teeth, and I will shake your hand. But yes, that's gonna be the tier list, guys. Let me know in the comments. How can you support the channel? Please like the video. It helps a lot. Subscribe. It helps even more. And I'll see you guys in the next video.